Welcome back, everybody. Okay, so this is the part of the stream where we delve into the case for police abolition. This essay comes to us from Dr. Ruha Benjamin. She is a professor of African American Studies at Princeton. She's written several books: People's Science, Race After Technology, Viral Justice, How We Grow the World We Want. She's been in activism and been a writer on many of these subjects for some years. I'm always a little bit awed at what other people have accomplished. Like, I'm just trying to catch up with my own tiny little corner of activism, and some people have had their nose to the grindstone for decades. Or even if they're young, have used their time more wisely than I have, I'll say. But anyway, let's dive into this essay. Before we begin, if this is your first time for one of these segments, these are intended as kind of open discussion. As I read through, I'll be giving my own thoughts, interjecting every now and then. If you have any of your own and want to discuss them, or just want to add to the conversation, that's what this is. It's education. It's having a conversation. It's learning about this stuff. And yeah. Okay. The new Jim Code. The shiny, high-tech wolf in sheep's clothing. Far from loosening incarceration's grip, modern tools like predictive policing and tracking apps have instead deepened the carceral state's influence over everyday life. From everyday apps to complex algorithms, technology has the potential to hide, speed, and deepen discrimination, all while appearing neutral and even benevolent when it comes to overtly racist practices of a previous era, or when compared to. Predictive policing programs, criminal risk assessment tools, and electronic ankle monitors are a few of the tools that perpetuate the injustices of the U.S. criminal legal system, or what I call the new Jim Code. The good news is that with the rise of the new Jim Code, many individuals and organizations are developing abolitionist tools as part of a larger data justice movement, challenging surveillance technologies that harm communities and designing interventions that foster collective well-being. Struggles over abolitionist futures are being waged not just in the streets, but on our phones, apps, and platforms. Thanks, Epilate. For example, Abolition is an app that converts your daily change into bail money to free black people from jail. I might need to get that. Hey, Donnie. Yeah, didn't miss this week. Yeah, we're just getting started. Abolition. Yeah, I need to check that out. That sounds clever. Calls for abolition are never simply about bringing harmful systems to an end, but also envisioning new ones. When Abolition co-founder Courtney Ziegler and I sat on a panel together at the 2018 Allied Media Conference, he pointed out the existence of similar technologies that present themselves as liberatory, but whose creators do not share an abolitionist commitment. At the same time, Jay-Z's Rock Nation had invested in a decarceration startup called Promise, which aims to address the problem of pre-trial detention for people who cannot afford bail. But among its features, Promise is also in the business of digitally tracking individuals to ensure they meet court appointments, show up for drug tests, and other forms of supervision as part of individual care plans, a euphemism if ever there was one. Right, so there was actually one of the essays we read recently which touched on how some of those programs are designed to fail a certain segment of the population, especially ones where, like, the example given was this individual's client, and they work in probation, it seems like, was unable to afford the rehab meetings that they had been assigned to go to. They weren't free to attend, but they were obligated to pay to go to them. So, those things are still very deeply problematic when you take someone who has been put through the carceral system, is in a destitute situation, and you drop them out with no prospects and demand that they pay hundreds of dollars to meet jumping through hoops that you've assigned or go back to jail. You're basically setting them up to go back to jail. It does sound like Promise has some good ideas, but falls short in a couple of others. In a piece on the website for BYP 100, Black Youth Project 100, an organization focused on transformative leadership development, direct action organizing, advocacy, and education, writer Alexandra Goodwin described Promise as a harbinger of the prison industrial complex's next iteration. The digital sphere and tech world of the 2000s is the next sector to have a stronghold around incarceration, she wrote, and will mold what incarceration looks like and determine the terrain on which prison abolitionists have to fight as a result. If both Abolition and Promise help people who cannot afford bail get out of cages, why is Promise a problem for those who support prison abolition? Because it creates a powerful mechanism that makes it easier to lock people back up, and because rather than turning away from the carceral apparatus, it extends that apparatus into everyday life. Whereas the money crowdfunded for Abolition operates like an endowment that is used to bail people out, Promise is an investment in and collaboration with law enforcement. The company, which received $3 million in venture capital, is not in the business of decarceration, but is part of the techno-corrections industry, which seeks to capitalize on very real concerns about mass incarceration and the political momentum of social justice organizing. Products like Promise make it easier and more cost-effective to track and re-imprison people for technical violations like missing a court appointment or a drug test. Again, I can envision exactly the... She is not ascribing malice to the creation of Promise, and, neither am I. I'm sure it was built with very good intentions, but is blind to the effects that it can have, and... because it is very easy to miss those things, unless you are constantly assessing things from an abolitionist framework. It's doubly difficult to envision how technology will impact things because technology evolves so quickly that we as a species haven't even actually adapted to or learned how to use or live with social media as a thing. It is in everyone's life, but we haven't actually socially evolved or adapted to its existence yet. It's way ahead of us as a species. So, you know, that's always the harsh edge of technology. When I say that as a software developer. Actually, briefly want to detour to a completely different subject. There have been, you know, capitalist apologists lately who have been talking about how it's a good thing, actually, that these billionaires are going into space, because think of all the technology that's going to come out of them doing so. And I'm assessing their launches, and I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing any tech that's being brought to market that is applicable to the end consumer, or even accessible to the end consumer. This seems like it's going to be a one and done, you know, dick measuring contest between billionaires, which at the end of the day, all there is to show for it is some media aggrandizing and a whole pile of wasted money. It's not actually furthering space exploration in any meaningful way. That's a separate subject. I don't mean to get off track. It just, the talk of all the, you know, technology and stuff kind of brought that to my mind. So let's see. Promise in this way is exemplary of the new Jim Code. Let's see. The loss of privacy through the use of social media seems like it could easily be used to track people who miss drug tests, meetings, etc. Yes. Yeah. We do see that already, and yeah, this app in particular, Promise, seems to do that to a much more explicit degree. But yeah, people are being tracked in their social media, on especially by law enforcement, on all sorts of things. I actually want to, maybe on my Friday slot, there's a game that I've wanted to bring to stream called Orwell, and it actually is largely from the perspective of law enforcement tracking people down through their interactions with social media and phone calls they make and such. And it does a wonderful job of exposing not only very real-world uses of technology by law enforcement, but also is a kind of a cautionary tale on how much information is safe to put out there. Let's see. Not defending the billionaire space race, but you do tend to find that as part of the missions, there is further technology that is discovered, improved, and rolled out as part of the manufacturing process. Most of the time, I agree, Flanker. In this case, though, because the mission is put man into suborbital flight, we've done that for decades. There's nothing new in that technology at all. They're not pushing the envelope because it's risky and they're not going to put their neck on the line. Like if you look at the specs of the rockets that have been used in this, it's really not there. Is there? It didn't look like. When I was looking at the specs, I wasn't seeing anything innovative in them, but maybe I missed something. I'm not a rocket scientist. Obviously, a lot more. It would go a lot further if they just straight up put that money directly into the companies and just told them, put it into your R&D, run with it. That's not happening. Oh, we got a troll. Okay, bye. Virgin Atlantic are focused on the passenger options, faster long-term travel. Not a good cost benefit. Yeah. Yeah, Virgin Atlantic's kind of been working on that for a while, and hopefully they're able to get something. Or Virgin Galactic? Or yeah. And there's a few that have dabbled with suborbital, flights to get that stuff moving around. We'll see. We'll see. Yeah. That could be. I could argue the point further, but I'll concede it for now because I don't want to stray too far off topic. And yes, I agree. SpaceX has been doing some good things, but that was unrelated to the recent push for like Bezos and stuff to go into space. No. You're fine. I started it. Yeah. Yeah. I would agree with that. But anyway, let's see. Where were we? Promise in this way is exemplary of the new Gym Code. It is dangerous and insidious precisely because it is packaged as social betterment. For-profit prison conglomerates such as the Geo Group and Core Civic, formerly Corrections Corporate of America or CCA, are proving especially adept at reconfiguring their business investments to create similar misdirection, leaving prisons and detention centers and turning to tech alternatives like ankle monitors and other digital tracking devices. Turn the world into your prison. In some cases, the companies that hold lucrative government contracts to imprison asylum seekers are the same ones that ICE hires to provide social services to those very people, even as they continue to be monitored remotely. While not being locked in a cage is an improvement, the alternative is a form of coded inequity and carceral control, and it is vital that the people committed to social justice look beyond the shiny exterior of organizations that peddle such reforms. Yeah, this by itself shouldn't be a thing. Imprisoning asylum seekers like that. Obviously, we're talking about police abolition as a whole, but if someone is here seeking asylum and they are locked into an ankle monitor, that's not actually like asylum. But it's been, I don't think there's been a point in my lifetime where immigration was treated humanely. People who are seeking to move here, if they are not from a, you know, white European country, are just treated as guilty right out of the gate. And yeah, any organization that ICE is hiring should be viewed with suspicion, because their mission is inherently inhumane. It's just to take people who are in a desperate situation and make things worse for them. A key tenet of prison abolition is that caging people works. Let's see, Donnie. The cost to the U.S. to ankle monitor asylum seeker. It seems asinine. Yeah. Yeah. But, like, people have been so deeply conditioned to view foreigners as a, like, national security threat that a lot of people are willing to fork over however much money to constantly monitor them or arrest them or keep them out of the country. And I'm not even just talking about Republicans there. Democrats are equally xenophobic. Well, not equally, but fear of immigration is definitely coded into the culture overall in America. And that's gotta change at some point. Because, like, we have to be able to coexist. And we should embrace people who want to live here. Yes. People are from different places than we're from. Yeah. That is unfortunately the prevailing attitude, Donnie. And as long as those who are in power and have money are able to gin up fear about some group, they can get people to justify throwing however much money at keeping them safe from that group, whether that be foreigners or, you know, LGBT people, or in some cases just straight up, you know, black people who live here. Huge amounts of money go into, like, keeping suburban neighborhoods white. Like, that was a whole thing during the 2020 election. That was a big talking point on the right, was, you know, trying to keep those people out of your neighborhoods. And it's like, really? That's what we're doing in 2020? Okay. Yeah. It's pretty fucked up. A key tenet of prison abolition is that caging people works directly against the safety and well-being of communities, because jails and prisons do not address the underlying reasons why people harm themselves and others. This is a point that I've repeated many times since I've kind of been turned on to the abolitionist mindset. So I'm going to repeat that. A key tenet of prison abolition is that caging people works directly against the safety and well-being of communities, because jails and prisons do not address the underlying reasons why people harm themselves and others. Or continue with that, like, that is the trouble of the punitive system, is your goal and your incentives are not actually to reduce crime. They are not to address behaviors and help people become, better, have better well-being and more independence and, a more stable living situation. The goal is just to find the people who the system has failed and remove them from everyone's awareness, to put them in a box where they don't have to be thought about by the good people. It's a way to weed out a section of the population and turn them into slaves. There is only a path for the current American justice system to do harm. There is not a path for it to lift anyone up. Mona says, I had received a ton of financial help while the Tennessee law was active. Yeah. Right now the law isn't in effect. Yep. It was a good injunction. I can't say I have a lot of confidence in the Supreme Court, but well, I've been surprised before by them. No, it shouldn't have. It's like pretty blatantly unconstitutional. Let's see. Right, a key tenet. In fact, they exacerbate the problem by making it even more difficult to obtain any of the support needed to live, work, and make amends for harms committed. But in the age of the new Jim Code, and as abolitionists have long argued, our vision must extend beyond the problem of caging to our consideration of technological innovations marketed as supporting prison reform. It is vital to divert money away from imprisonment to schools and public housing if we really want to make communities stronger, safer, and more supportive for all their members. Right. Education, food security, shelter security, economic security. These things are the cornerstones of actually reducing crime. Those are the only things that have a proven track record of actually lowering the amount of crime, like reliably. You make the population have a more stable a healthy living situation. Desperation is what drives people to do things most of the time. But as abolitionist organization Critical Resistance has argued, simply diverting resources in this way is no panacea because schools and public housing, as they currently function, are an extension of the prison industrial complex. Many operate with a logic of carcerality and on policies that discriminate against those who have been convicted of crimes. Pouring money into them as they are will only make them more effective in their current function as institutions of social control. We have to look beyond the surface of what they say they do to what they actually do, in the same way in which I am calling on all of us to question the tech industry's do-good rhetoric. This requires us to consider not the ends, but also the means. How we get to the end matters. If the path is that private companies, celebrities, and tech innovators should cash in on the momentum of communities and organizations that challenge mass incarceration, the likelihood is that the end achieved will replicate the current social order. This is a very good point, and one that should always be kept in mind. Not even just about police abolition. Any cool new tech that comes out, I'm not saying, be a Luddite about it, but question what it actually does, what incentives it creates. Really analyze stuff. We're seeing what an unfettered, Facebook and stuff actually does, despite the flowery words of how it's just bringing everyone together and allowing you to keep in touch with all of your friends and family and all this stuff. And no, it's actually a, breeding ground for ever increasing extremist circles because of the way that it functions. Right. Tech is not the solution. It is a tool. It can be part of working towards a solution. Tech can be part of working towards a solution, but it is not a solution in and of itself. And you can be greatly informed with the effect that it will have when you assess those who are in control of tech. If those who are in control of, the biggest tech being used to implement something are white capitalists, white billionaires, then the likelihood that it will actually address inequity in this country is very, very low. Just saying. Okay. To see things as they really are, you must imagine them for what they might be, said the late legal and critical race scholar Derek A. Bell, urging a radical assessment of reality through creative methods and racial reversals. Take, for instance, a parody project that begins by subverting the anti-black logics embedded in new high-tech approaches to crime prevention. Instead of using predictive policing techniques to forecast what some might call street crime, the white-collar early warning system flips the script by creating a heat map that flags city blocks where financial crimes are likely to occur. The system not only brings into view the hidden but no less deadly crimes of capitalism and the wealthy's hoarding of resources, but includes an app that alerts users when they enter high-risk areas to encourage citizen policing and awareness. I like that concept as a parody. It's effective messaging. Taking it one step further, the development team for the white-collar early warning system is working on a facial recognition program meant to flag individuals who are likely perpetrators, and the training set used to design the algorithm includes the profile pictures of 7,000 corporate executives downloaded from the popular professional network site LinkedIn, subverting the documented racism of AI algorithms and predictive policing by using a corpus of data that is largely white and male. By deliberately and inventively upsetting the status quo, analysts can better understand and expose the many forms of discrimination embedded in and enabled by technology. It does, doesn't it, Donnie? Together, we must critically examine the progressive narratives that surround technology, shining a light on how technical fixes for social problems can perpetrate racism as we continue to seed an abolitionist world where we can all thrive. Portions of this essay are republished with permission from Race After Technology by the same author. So yeah, that was the new Jim Code. She teaches us and cautions us to be skeptical of the solutions so readily and often peddled by tech bros to bring about social change. One of the what I would say more telling recent shifts or examples, illustrations of this, is cryptocurrency as a whole. When it was first taking off, all of the promises were out there. All of the promises of it being like a benevolent way to keep your money secure, to do these transactions, to avoid, the ills of banking, and to really stick it to all the capitalists and hedge markets and all the, Wall Street guys. All those guys now own a majority stake of crypto. They are the ones who manipulate that market and, whip the various cryptocurrencies up and down by making statements or by making or pulling investments. So what's actually changed? The only thing that has led to is a, for now, completely unregulated market where they can do even more shady shit, and which puts consumers who are invested in it at even greater risk, because there is no FDIC who will protect your investment if it dries up, gets scammed out of you, what have you. And the same is true of tech solutions for prison things. Like, yeah, be skeptical of them. Assess what it actually does. Stretch your imagination to imagine what it could do. One of the lenses that I like to analyze things through is through gamification. Try and just break things down to a numbers perspective. What incentives are created? What does a particular system reward, and what does it actually punish? Not what does it say it rewards and punishes, what systemically does it have built in to create incentives and disincentives for various things, and to follow that to its logical conclusion. See where it leads, and see if that's something that you actually believe in or not. Again, that's not to say, oh, technology bad. It's just walk in with skepticism and open eyes, like genuine, actual skepticism, not the knee-jerk sort of empty skepticism. The type that's curious. So yeah. That was the new Gym Code by Dr. Ruha Benjamin. Am I getting that name right? I believe so. Yeah. I hope you have enjoyed